Okay, let's take a look at some graphs here. This is a bar graph right here. And over here, I have the number of bacteria on this side. Over here, I have the temperature. So these are the different temperatures, temperature test run. And this is the number of bacteria on this side. We know this is a bar graph. So the temperature test 3, I had the most bacteria that were grown. Temperature 4, I had the least. And these two were kind of in between. So if I'm taking a look at this chart, remember that when you have a chart like this, they're going to ask you questions about maybe which one had colonies around 15, and then you would say that would be number 1. So this one will ask you different questions based on those graphs. Down here, this is a really good example of a graph that has a carrying capacity in it. We know that this is our carrying capacity right here, right? And then these are our areas where they overshoot and then crash. Remember that in our notes? We overshot and crashed in our notes. And so that's what's occurring at each one of these. So in our upswing, like this, we have more food supply, we have other things that are going on, so that we have an increase in our population. And then on the downside, I have a decrease in my population. And then that decrease is going to be because of some limiting factors. And we know what some of our limiting factors are. They're the food supplies we have, water supplies, that type of thing, all right? So that could be that part of it. Here's another type of graph here that we have, and this is where I have, this is very much like our our paramecium lab that we did. We have two types of organisms in here, and they're living together. And we have one that is just absolutely thriving and one that's not thriving so much. So what do you think it is that's causing one to live and one not to live in there? What are some of the things? If we have the same food supply in there, it's not necessarily the food, but what are these organisms must be doing that is causing this line to be up higher than this line? And obviously whatever's happening, this one is winning, correct? So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that, and then I want you to tell Mrs. Reaney when you're done what you think it is that is causing this type of a line graph in terms of some of our limiting factors that we talked about. And these would probably be some of our density dependent. So look those up and see what type of factors that you might think would cause a graph to look something like that, okay? Also, remember we talked about dispersal patterns here, and so you have to look and see which ones, types of these patterns you think these are. These definitely clump around here, so this is definitely going to be a clumping pattern. And there's got to be reasons for that. You know, why are they clumping together? There are going to be factors, environmental factors, that are going to make these organisms clump together, whether that be where the food supply is, whether that be where the water supply is, whether that be where they feel safe together in numbers. This pattern over here doesn't look necessarily completely uniform, so this is going to be probably more like a random pattern. If they ask you to calculate the population density in here, you would just start counting each one of those dots up, and that would be able to give you, what your density is for that. So that's how you kind of read those dispersal patterns right there. This looks very similar to the deer population one that we did, and you notice that it goes up and it goes down and then back up and then down. And remember when we did this oh deer activity that we had limiting factors that were going to cause our graph to go like this. You know, if I had more deer than I had food, so I had more deer and less food, things became very competitive. And with that competitiveness, then my population would decrease. Okay, goes up and down. What do you think this line right here kind of represents that goes in between most of these numbers here? It goes along with our notes that we talked about. I want you to think about what you think that is, and you can let Mrs. Reaney know what you think that is also. These are just some examples of some of the things that you might need to know for your test. So look that over and see how you do with that. Good luck.